In this episode of Local Brew, I'm visiting one of Maine's original craft breweries, Allagash Brewing Company, a leader in the world of Belgian beers. There, I'll help brewer Evan Culver brew a massive 72-barrel batch of their flagship beer, Allagash White.
One thing about our white is it's not overly spiced. And our yeast provides a nice, good Belgian flavor, a nice sulfur profile, as well as the hop profile and the fermentation profile that we use. You know, you're just left with a white beer that has an incredible fluffy body with a really good spice character.
I love it.
Then I'll meet brewmaster Jason Perkins, who takes me on a special behind-the-scenes tour of Allagash.
This is pretty impressive, man. So what do you do in this room?
We call it the Curio room because the majority of the beer that's aged in this room is our Allagash Curio.
After that, we'll pull some nails to make our very own blend of Allagash beer in one of their wild barrel aging rooms.
So blending is a huge part of what happens in this room. It's kind of the final piece. And if you have the exact same beer that goes into the exact same type of barrels for the exact same amount of time, there's still variation there. So to kind of combat that inconsistency, if you will, is the final piece of finding the right beers to blend with the right beers.
Gotcha.
And we visit the most famous room at Allagash, their Coolship.
This vessel came about many centuries ago, really, for the cooling of wort, really before brewers even knew what yeast was. They just knew if I cool my liquid quickly, I can get fermentation to happen quicker.
Then I'll visit their sensory panel where my beer tasting knowledge is put to the test.
This is a warm-up beer, just to kind of wash any coffee that you might have in your mouth.
I always like a warm-up beer. You know, I do that too. I usually a warm-up beer every day.
Next, I'll talk with the man who started it all, Allagash founder Rob Todd, in the very spot that the first Allagash beer was brewed.
It looks like this was the original setup?
That's right, so you can see up there in this picture, this is the original brew house, which was very stripped down, totally manual, not at all automated. So this is kind of an opportunity to see how things were really for years before the brand got some momentum.
Then I'm heading to one of Portland's original craft beer bars, the Great Lost Bear, to talk Allagash beer with bar manager Mike Dickson.
It seems like your history with Allagash is pretty storied. I mean, we just talked with Rob, and his first keg of beer that he ever sold was right here?
Absolutely, and it seems like just yesterday, but it's nice to be part of that history, and we've never really looked back, or I don't think he has either. It's our number one draft account, probably 10 months out of the year. That's the reputation that Allagash Alley has developed with us.
Yes, it's all about Belgian beer, barrels, and the bear in this episode of Local Brew. The craft beer scene in the United States is exploding, with over 2,800 breweries. States like Vermont, Oregon, Colorado, and Maine are leading the way in this revolution. With over 50 licensed breweries brewing over 200 beers, Maine is a leader in the craft beer world. I'm Matt Delamater, and I love beer. I'm hitting the road to visit the best breweries in Maine and learn the story behind the brew. I'm going behind the scenes to discover who the brewers are, how their beer is made, and what drives them to create some of the best beer in the country. This is Local Brew. Local Brew is sponsored by the Maine Brew Bus, the official ride of Local Brew, driving you to drink local since 2012. Beer Cellar, selling fine craft beer, wine, ciders, and mead in Portland, Maine. Carter's Cross Country Ski Center, your Maine cross-country skiing source in Oxford and Bethel, Maine.
The Maine Brew Bus, Maine's original brewery tour company, is a fun and unique way to visit craft breweries in Maine. Hop on board and experience our all-inclusive tours of Maine craft breweries, distilleries, wineries, meaderies, and even coffee roasters. Leave the driving to us while you enjoy behind-the-scenes tours, local snacks, trivia, and of course, beer. Voted #1 activity in Portland, Maine on TripAdvisor, the Maine Brew Bus is the best way to visit craft breweries in Maine. Check out our schedule and book your tickets now at themainbrewbus.com. The Maine Brew Bus, the official ride of Local Brew TV, driving you to drink local.
Today I'm in Portland to visit one of Maine's and the country's most respected craft breweries, Allagash Brewing Company. Founded in 1995 by Rob Todd, who originally wanted to be a geology teacher, but developed a passion for Belgian-style beers while working at a brewery in Vermont. He loved the experimental nature of the beers, but he couldn't find many in the US, so he decided to start his own brewery, brewing only Belgian beers at a time when big beer was king and few people had ever tasted them. He started as a one-man operation with a 15-barrel brew house that he designed and built himself using old dairy equipment. At the time, Allagash was one of the smallest craft breweries in the country, producing just 120 barrels, or 240 kegs of beer in its first year. Rob brewed beer with the most authentic ingredients he could get his hands on, creating Allagash's signature beer, White. In the summer of 1995, Rob sold his first batch of White to the Great Lost Bear, where Allagash has been a staple ever since. Today, Allagash is known across the country and around the world for their high-quality, experimental, and delicious Belgian-style beers. They offer 6 year-round beers, 7 yearly releases, and numerous one-offs and keg-only releases. The culture at Allagash encourages employees to constantly push the limits of beer and themselves, even if it means taking a risk on a beer that may never sell. In 2008, they built a traditional open-air fermentation tank, also known as a Coolship, so they could create authentic lambic-inspired beers. This was the first traditional Coolship built in the United States by a modern brewery, and produces some of Allagash's most sought-after beers. In the past 5 years, Allagash has expanded the brewery twice, growing from New England's original Belgian-style brewery into one of the industry's most distinguished and well-respected brands. Now I'm heading inside to help brew a batch of their most popular beer, Allagash White, with brewer Evan Culver.
Evan, my man, I'm Matt.
Matt, nice to meet you.
So nice to meet you.
How are you?
Fantastic, I'm great. Thanks.
Yeah, well, welcome to the place.
Thanks for having us out today. This place is amazing.
It's going to be a fun day.
Amazing. So what we got brewing today?
We're going to be brewing some White today.
Some White, some Allagash White.
Absolutely. Brewing some White every day, beginning of the week especially, White beer.
That's you do that every day?
Yep, start the week, beginning of the week, White, usually around 4 batches, and then we'll end the week with specialty, Saison, triple, black, something like that.
Do you need an extra set of hands?
Let's do this.
I love it.
Come on, follow me.
Can I get some cool glasses?
Absolutely. Safe glasses right here.
Safety first.
Safety first.
I love it. All right.
Right this way.
Let's rock and roll. All right. Evan takes me to the newest part of Allagash's brewing operation, where we'll brew a batch of White. This part of the brewery was built less than a year ago and turns out over 4,032 barrels of beer per week.
So welcome to the world of brewing.
Welcome to the world of high-tech brewing. I feel like if I touch this, I'm going to blow this place up. I feel like I'm going to let you do that.
The automation it's there, but it's safe. You're not going to mess anything up.
Due to the growth in recent years, Allagash has invested in an automated brewing system, which runs 24 hours a day, 5 days a week. This allows them to brew beer more consistently, using less energy and reducing their raw ingredients by 15%. They brew 4 batches of White per day and another 4 batches each night. Just pumping Allagash White.
That's right.
All 24/7, baby.
80% of our production is Allagash White.
No kidding. Well, it's an amazing beer. I can see it's everywhere.
World class.
So, how long have you been a brewer here?
I've been brewing for Allagash for probably a year and a half. Before this, I was actually a carpenter that was home brewing on the side, and I fell in love with it. I started out on the keg line, like everybody does. You don't just start as a brewer. You start packaging, cleaning tanks, and then you work into centrifuging, filtering beer, and then you can kind of get into the brewing aspect of things. It's pretty incredible.
That's amazing.
And this is just a small portion of it.
I love it.
A small portion of it.
Well, can I help you out a little bit today?
Absolutely. We have to go finish out weighing hops and spices.
All right, let's go.
This way.
Evan leads me to the hop weighing area, where we will weigh out the hops needed for this batch of White, plus coriander, orange peel, and a secret spice that only the brewers at Allagash know about. So what do we got here? We
have our coriander and our secret spice already ground.
Evan has already weighed out most of the ingredients needed for this batch of beer. I'll help him weigh out 4 buckets of hops, because they'll be brewing 4 batches of White today. I have to weigh out the correct number of hops for each batch of White, then pour the hops into another bucket. Once that bucket is ready, Evan places a green bucket on top so the brewers know it's ready to go. Next, I weigh out the orange peel. The orange peel is a crucial part of this beer, giving it a distinct citrus flavor and aroma.
One thing about our White is it's not overly spiced, and our yeast provides a nice, good Belgian flavor, a nice sulfur profile, as well as the hop profile and the fermentation profile that we use. You're just left with a white beer that has an incredible fluffy body with a really good spice character.
I love it. And the orange peel is a big part of that.
Huge part of it. Huge part of it.
Now that the buckets have been properly weighed, we move the extra ones to cold storage so they're ready to go later today. Then we head back to the brew house to start the mash-in.
So right here, this is the mash-in.
This is the mash-in.
I love it.
The entire brew system is controlled by this computer. Once Evan starts the mash-in, water enters the mash tun through this large pipe. The pipe has a special glass section so Evan can see what's happening with the brew at all times.
Oh, look at this guy.
Yeah, so right now, this is actually laying the base water.
The grain will come through this as well?
Yep, absolutely. Here she goes, about to start kicking in some grain.
It's taking off.
It takes approximately 25 minutes to mash it.
Whole mash in 25 minutes.
The whole mash, 3,400 pounds in this baby.
3,400 pounds of grain.
Yep. Cool. So as we're going in there, there's a paddle on the bottom. It's constantly homogenizing it. So we're getting a nice even temperature.
Once all the grain is in the mash tun, it needs to rest for a couple of hours. This is actually Evan's second batch of white for today. The first batch has already passed through the mash tun to the kettle and is waiting for us to add the hops and the spices. Evan shows me how it's done.
So this is the hop doser area.
Hop doser area.
Yep.
I love it.
This is for hop 1.
Okay.
This one's for hop 2.
Okay.
And these two are connected to the kettle, whereas these two right behind me here, these are connected to the whirlpool.
Gotcha.
So we'll just pop the top off here.
Nice.
You can lift that guy right up. Yeah.
Nice, man.
So we have this little cover here. Cover goes on.
Makes sense.
Hops go in.
Hops just go in.
Double check that you're pouring from the right bucket. Hop 1. That's what we want.
1. Bam. Hop
Boom.
1. In we go.
Hit it up.
After I finish with this bucket, we move on to hop doser number 2 to add the spices and a second bucket of hops. Yeah, you know, it's good. It's exact science.
A little dusty.
I like
over
that.
here.
That was good.
Dude.
I think I'm gonna go chat with Jason a little bit, but this has been a blast. Man.
Hey,
Thanks,
enjoy
man.
talking
Appreciate
to
it.
him.
All right, cheers. Coming up, I get a tour of the brewery from the brewmaster himself, Jason Perkins.
We have everything the brewer needs to access in here.
Then we're headed to the barrel room, where he'll show me how they blend their beers.
Blending's a huge part of what happens in this room. It's kind of the final piece.
And later, we visit the Coolship.
What we were trying to do here is kind of see if we could produce beer through spontaneous fermentation.
But first, it's time for another round. Today, I'm at Allagash Brewing Company in Portland, Maine, where I've met Evan Culver and helped brew a batch of white. Now brewmaster Jason Perkins is going to give me a behind-the-scenes look at Allagash's brewing operation. How's it going? You must be Jason.
I am, Jason.
Pleasure.
Good to see you.
Nice to meet you. So you are the man.
Well,
One of
I
them.
don't know about that, but I'm the brewmaster here.
You're the
so,
brewmaster,
yeah,
okay.
oversee the production side of things.
Awesome, awesome. Now, how long have you been here?
This is my 17th year.
17th year.
So
Wow.
it's been a while.
Like most craft brewers, Jason started as a home brewer. Before landing a job at the brewery he was buying his homebrew ingredients from. In 1998, he moved back to Maine and started working part-time at Gritty's Brew Pub in Freeport. Then he heard about Allagash, which at the time was still a very small brewery. He started hounding Rob Todd for a job, and luckily, Rob was in need of another brewer, so he hired him. Since then, he's worked his way up through the beer ranks, officially becoming Allagash's brewmaster in 2004. Throughout the years, Jason has helped develop some of Allagash's most distinguished beers, including Interlude and Curio. Well, this is just really one small building in what is a whole bunch of other buildings. Do you mind giving me a walk around and check it out? I love it. Let's
Cool.
do it.
Yeah, follow me.
Appreciate it. Jason takes me to the old brew house, where all of Allagash's beer was brewed before they built the new brew house. Some of the same equipment Rob used to start Allagash is still being used today.
You know, I have this kind of sentimental attachment to a lot of this equipment because some of this equipment was original. This vessel here is our lauter tun here. It used to be our mash lauter combo vessel when Rob opened the business in 1995. The tank over there that holds the grain, that's original tank as well. So there's a lot of components of this that are, you know,
So from the original
very first
startup.
brewhouse,
No
yeah.
kidding. Wow.
And so we've kind of slowly modified it over the years and modernized it. So you can actually see this here is an old dairy tank. You can see this medallion here shows an actual cow's head. So we kind of took an old vessel and slowly modified it. So it's kind of a sign of our, you know, our beginnings when, you know, we're a really small company and you know, had to, you know, use whatever resources we could get.
Totally, you had to modify and make it work to make a good product. That's awesome.
So you saw the lauter tun up there. This one is our kind of homemade version. So.
Wow. Do you still brew on these systems?
We do. We brew maybe about once a week on this brew house. Typically, it's our a lot of the stuff that's in the wild barrel room next door comes off of here.
Cool.
But a lot of our kind of sized up experimental batches before we get it on the big system, we'll brew it here, kind of get ourselves sorted, and you know get ourselves in the position where we know what the flavors will be like.
So it seems like you're definitely using all the equipment in this facility.
For sure.
This is awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what's What's in this big building right here? This space right
That's
here?
one of 2 barrel rooms that we have here.
Okay, awesome.
That's what we call our curio room. So
Awesome.
it's got a pretty nice aroma to it, so we should go check it out.
Check that guy out?
Let's do it.
Awesome. All right.
Cool.
I love it.
All right.
Yeah, after you. Wow. This is pretty impressive, man. Look at this. So what do you do in this room?
We call it the curio room because the majority of the beer that's aged in this room is our Allagash Curio.
Curio is the first beer Allagash started barreling, and it's available year-round. It's made by aging their triple ale in used bourbon barrels for about 8 weeks.
And during that time, the beer takes on kind of the flavor of the barrel. Of course, some bourbon flavor, spirit flavor.
Absolutely.
Flavors of kind of vanilla, coconut, stuff that comes from the charred
stuff,
barrels.
yeah.
It makes, basically transforms the beer into another beer in and of itself.
So, after you're done with these barrels, do you use them again?
Once again, it depends on the beer, but for the most part, for this beer, Curio, when we're done using the barrel once, we've already got what we kind of want out of the
You've
barrel.
extracted what
We've
you
tried
want.
to reuse them several times. We just don't get the same flavor
Gotcha.
effect. So a lot of them get resold. We sell them to local breweries who can reuse
Yep.
them.
Awesome.
A couple other local people in town who are using them to build stuff like flooring.
No kidding.
Light
Wow, so you really
fixtures,
repurpose them.
walls.
That's
yeah,
really
it's,
cool.
A lot. They get a lot of use. They're pretty in high demand.
It's a good beer too.
Yeah, thank you.
It's a good beer,
Thank you.
too.
You can really smell
I know, you
the aroma of the barrel and
I feel
really
like
the
I'm in
bourbon
like
right in here.
a bourbon factory. It's
Yeah.
amazing. And the way that interacts with the beer is incredible. So, well, we got more to see, man.
Yeah,
this
we
is
do.
amazing. It's cold in here. Let's
All right,
go.
let's
Let's
go.
get warm
Out
and
this
see,
way.
see some more stuff. Next, we head to the bunker, where Allagash ferments all their beers in tanks mounted in the ceiling. It takes anywhere from 2 weeks to several months to ferment Allagash beers. To maximize space, they've installed these giant fermentation tanks outside with access to them from within this room. So above us are the giant tanks that you
Exactly.
see when you pull up to your
Yeah.
brewery. Wow.
Yeah, they're called roof-mounted tanks because you're not sitting on legs like the tanks in the rest of the brewery. They're actually being supported by this structure themselves.
Wow.
And what it allows us to do is not build a huge building to hold them. We have everything the brewer needs to access in here. Valves to remove beer, valves to remove yeast, sample ports to take samples for our QC purposes. So everything they need to access is in here, and everything that they don't need to is outside.
Now, this behind me looks like a brew system.
Yeah, so this is a pretty neat part of Allagash. This is our pilot system. You can probably notice that they're kegs. They're
Yeah.
converted kegs.
Yeah, totally.
So that's 15 and a half gallons is the size of the kegs.
Gotcha.
We'll make about 10 gallons at a time off this system.
Mm-hmm.
And it's part of a program here we call the pilot program, which is run by a team of a group of guys who accept pilot ideas from anyone at the company. So everyone who works here is really strongly encouraged to submit an idea for a beer.
Wow.
And some of them are home brewers themselves or brewers here, so they have a good sense of recipes and what they want. But sometimes it's someone from the office or someone from maybe the warehouse who's never brewed before, and the pilot team will work with them. They'll take a concept, like I want to brew this kind of beer with this kind of flavor profile, and they'll work together. It serves a couple purposes. It certainly gives people an outlet to take a break from their day-to-day and do something different. It's a lot of fun. But it's a very real practical purpose. Is almost every new beer we do starts on this system.
On this, wow. So
and-
there could be a budding brewer,
Exactly.
in your midst that has this beautiful idea,
Yeah.
and they can do it.
And in that case, what will happen is it'll get brewed once on here. We'll really like it. We'll brew it again, tweak it a little bit, brew it again, and so on. And then eventually it'll get brewed on the smaller brew house, and then eventually on the bigger brew house. So.
Do you have any beers right now on tap that came from this system?
Oh, like I said, almost
All of
our
them. Oh,
beers.
wow. Yeah.
So, Saison is our most recent
kidding.
year-round release. That beer, like I said, started like that. One of our brewers, he's actually one of our pilot team members as well, Patrick Chavanel, created that beer originally on the pilot system, and we did a number of different versions of it here, and then slowly sized it up, and before we knew it, it was a full-time release.
Talk about empowering your people to really, stimulate creativity. That's amazing.
Well, we're big on creativity here, and it's nice. What this enables us to do is not have creativity come from one or two people. We're fortunate that almost every one of our staff members is a beer geek themselves. And so we can take that passion from them and use it here, which is great.
You don't always see that in larger scale
we're
production.
lucky.
That's pretty
We're lucky,
impressive.
for sure.
So this is where you keep all the high production stuff.
Correct.
I know you keep the lower production, but some of the different brews elsewhere. Can we check those out too?
Yeah, absolutely.
I love it.
Let's head out this way.
Coming up, we visit the Wild Barrel Room to pull nails and blend beer.
So we'll do it on a small scale with flasks just like this. Run it by a couple of the brewers on our staff, and then we'll take that information and size it up.
Then Jason takes me to the Coolship.
What we were doing was following a tradition of some of the great lambic breweries in Belgium. We just kind of wanted to see if we could do it.
And later, I sit down with Allagash founder Rob Todd.
Going back 10 or so years, we couldn't give the beer away.
But first, it's time for another round. Today I'm at Allagash Brewing Company, where I've met brewmaster Jason Perkins, who's given me a behind-the-scenes tour of Allagash. Now we're heading to the Wild Barrel Room, where Allagash keeps its most unique barrel-aged beers. Wow, smell that.
Yeah, it's a different smell for sure. So this is our Wild Barrel
This is
room.
your wild room.
And a lot of different stuff happens in here. With the curio room we spoke of earlier, one of the main purposes of that room is to extract flavor from the barrels. Here there's a little bit of that going on, but there's also kind of a home for various brewing microbes that we're trying to utilize here.
Interesting. Okay.
So everything in this room is what we would call wild.
This is where you'll find all of Allagash's Coolship and other experimental beers that use unique yeast strains such as Brettanomyces and Lactobacillus. Allagash lets them age in this temperature-controlled room for anywhere from 2 to 4 years, depending on the type of flavor profile they're trying to achieve. What's this stuff that's like coming out of it? Is that the yeast?
Yeah, so those are our Coolship barrels. Fermentation takes place in the barrel, and that's what you're seeing now. It's been several months that or a little over a month that they've been there.
Yeah.
Continuing to see that fermentation.
So it's happening.
This is a beer that's cooled in our Coolship. All the yeast and wild yeast inoculation happens in that vessel.
Wow.
And so it basically is fermented with what's naturally around
What's
it.
in the air.
So
Wow.
it spends one night in that Coolship and then comes over here and goes into barrels for the rest of its life, which can be anywhere from 1 to 3 years.
So, tell me about these little nails on every single one of these.
Yeah, good question. So that's an old winemaker's trick. One way you can sample from a wine barrel, a beer barrel, is in through the top, but that really disturbs the beer a lot more.
Gotcha.
And so this is a much more practical way, so we can pull that out and take a sample right out of it.
No kidding. Part of Jason's job is to pull these nails and blend different beers. Today, he's offering to show me how it's done.
So you can see this beer has been in here for 2.5 years plus.
Today, we'll be blending a beer called Resurgam. Resurgam is one of Allagash's Coolship beers, which is typically made with a blend of 1, 2, and 3-year-old beers. The first sample Jason pulls is from a barrel that has been aging for 3 years. Next, he pulls a sample from a 2-year-old barrel. Then we head to the end of the building to pull a sample from another 2-year-old barrel.
You want to do the honors?
I'm gonna get in there.
Go for it.
So you line it up right there, right?
You should be able to pull that right out.
Bam.
There you go. Let's go ahead and put that right back in there.
Shouldn't leave you alone in this room for too long, right? You just start popping nails, and
Great.
let's blend these babies.
All right, let's do
do
it.
it. I
Come on.
love it. Now that we've got our 3 different samples, Jason shows me how they typically blend these wild fermented beers.
So blending is a huge part of what happens in this room. It's kind of the final piece. And if you have the exact same beer that goes into the exact same type of barrels for the exact same amount of time, there's still variation there.
Right.
So to kind of combat that inconsistency, if you will, is the final piece of finding the right beers to blend with the right beers.
Gotcha.
And what we'll do today is I'll just kind of give you an idea of how that works for a beer like Resurgam. So Resurgam is a blend of 1, 2, and 3-year-old spontaneously fermented beer. So same base beer, just different ages.
Yeah, it's so
And
cool.
there'll be varying levels of acidity in them. There'll be varying levels of sugar, still remaining
Gotcha.
dry versus a little bit sweeter. And we have to find that right mix.
Jason does a mock blend of mostly the older beer with a little of the 2 younger beers.
One of the nice things about the young version, we have a lot more healthy yeast than we would in the older stuff.
Resurgam is a bottle-conditioned beer, which means it needs to retain some yeast to keep the fermentation process happening even after the beer has been bottled.
For us to get to a final blend, we kind of have to do it on this scale.
You kind of test
first.
it? Yeah, that's good.
So we'll do it on a small scale with flasks just like this. Run it by a couple of the brewers on our staff, our more experienced guys, and then we'll take that information and size it up.
After the beer is in the glass, Jason mixes it a bit more to ensure the beer has been properly blended. Then we try it. This is good. You're gonna bottle some of this?
We might have to. We might have to.
Now that I've seen the blending process, Jason takes me to one of the most unique parts of Allagash, their Coolship. The Coolship is located in this small building behind the brewery and is used to spontaneously ferment Allagash beers.
So here we are.
So this is the Coolship.
This is it.
Wow.
And it's a pretty small room.
Yeah, you just kind of fit it to use.
But I will say of note, all the wood for the ceiling and all the wood for the window frames and the door frames came from trees that we cut down to build this building.
Okay,
so,
cool.
but this vessel came about many centuries ago, really, for the cooling of wort. Really before brewers even knew what yeast was. They just knew if I cool my liquid quickly, I can get fermentation to happen quicker. And once they figured out how to isolate yeast and mechanical cooling and stuff like that, they moved away from this type of cooling. A few breweries in the world still use them, most notably at lambic breweries.
Lambic beers are traditionally brewed in the Seine River Valley region of Belgium, near Brussels. Inspired by the lambic process, Rob Todd decided to build his own Coolship in Allagash in 2007. It was the first Coolship ever built by a U.S. brewery and has produced some of Allagash's most sought-after beers. Because Allagash holds a very deep respect for the brewers of Belgium, they don't call their beers lambics. Instead, they refer to them as spontaneously fermented beers.
What we were trying to do here in 2007 was kind of see if we could produce beer through spontaneous fermentation, so with no yeast that we're adding, other than what comes in through these windows.
Now, in 2007, when you guys did this, there weren't many people doing it?
No one in the U.S.
No one? You were
doing it. So what we were doing was following a tradition of some of the great lambic breweries in Belgium. So they had been doing it. We really, kind of what it came down to is we just kind of wanted to see if we could do it. History books around that kind of brewing claim that type of beer production can only be done around Brussels and Belgium. We talked to some of those brewers over there, and they actually didn't necessarily believe that, so we thought we'd give it a whirl here.
That's awesome.
So this is the only entrance into the space. So this is a port that basically goes into the cellars, fermentation area in the main brewery, and we'll have a hose that comes right in through that hole, hooks right up into this point here, fills up the vessel, comes in here full boiling temperature, so this room steams right up when we're putting it in. And then it stays in here for the night. And then it goes into barrels, and the rest of its life it's in barrels.
No kidding. So I see you got a couple Coolship beers here with us.
Coolship Cerise. So that's one of two fruited beers we do in the Coolship series. We take about 2-year-old spontaneous beer and we age it on cherries for about 3 or 4 months.
This one looks pretty special.
Oh, that's a pretty rare one. That's called Coolship Single Barrel 1. Typically, all the Coolship beers are a blend of multiple barrels. This is a single barrel release. So, and actually, in that case, a bourbon barrel, which is different. Typically, the beers we make in Coolship barrels are former wine barrels. Pretty rare.
That's pretty rare. We might take that one aside.
Maybe later.
Well, I want to try this. I want to try the cherry.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's give it a try.
All right.
This is aged on tart local cherries. Our good friends over at Dole's Orchard grow these for us. They grow 2 different varieties, Montmorency and Balaton. We use kind of a blend of both. Some people are often surprised it's not more deep red color, but one of the 2 cherries that we use, a Montmorency cherry, actually contributes almost no color. It's an interesting cherry. It's red on the outside. If you break open the inside of the cherry, it's got like a white inside. But it gives a great kind of allspicy cinnamon type note to it.
It smells great.
The Balaton gives a little bit more classic cherry nose.
Wow, that's fantastic.
And we're just fortunate Rob Todd, as the owner, is willing to invest in stuff like this. I mean, this is one big experiment, really.
Absolutely. Jay, I can't thank you enough for showing me your brewery. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you for coming. I appreciate it. Cheers.
Absolutely. Coming up, my taste buds get put to the test on the Allagash sensory panel. Done. Does that mean I can just drink? Then I sit down with the man behind Allagash Brewing, founder Rob Todd.
I kind of thought when I finished my first pint, I'd be satisfied and there really wouldn't be any more work to do. And I had that pint, then had one more pint, and then I kind of thought, okay, I gotta get back to work.
And later, I'm heading to one of Portland's original craft beer bars, the Great Lost Bear. But first, it's time for another round. Today I'm at Allagash Brewing, where brewmaster Jason Perkins has showed me how they blend beer in their wild barrel room. Later, I'm sitting down with the man who started it all, the founder of Allagash Brewing, Rob Todd. Now, I'm heading to a sensory panel to test my beer tasting knowledge. Hey, my man. How you doing? I'm Matt.
Matt, I'm Carl.
Nice
How
to
are you
meet
doing?
you, Carl. What do we got going on here?
So, this is our product release sensory panel.
The sensory panel is the last stop for all of Allagash's beer before it gets shipped to customers around the country. Every batch of Allagash gets taste tested by specially trained employees for flavor, aroma, color, and to make sure it's actually the beer they think it is. Because you wouldn't want to ship a triple in a white bottle. Carl Arnberg is the sensory manager and is responsible for ensuring the quality of every bottle of beer they sell. Today, he's going to show me how it's done.
This is a warm-up beer, just to kind of wash any coffee that you might have in your mouth out. Pour yourself a little white.
I always like a warm-up beer. You know, I do that too. I usually a warm-up beer every day. That's good.
Feel free to shoot some darts, and I'll set up a flight of beer.
Sweet.
While I'm shooting darts, Carl sets up 3 samples of beer for me to test in a special cubicle away from all distractions. He leads me there.
All
Here's your flight of beer.
Okay.
There's a lot of questions on the form asking you over and over again, is this beer true to brand for aroma, flavor, mouthfeel, and overall?
All right.
So enjoy.
Excellent, man.
Carl didn't tell me which beer I'd be tasting today, which is part of the test. I need to be able to identify the beer by smell, color, and taste alone. Plus, I need to be able to tell if the beer tastes off for some reason. It's a tough job, but somebody's got to do it.
It's Allagash White. Yes. Yes. Done. Does that mean I can just drink?
Carl eventually comes back to get me and leads me to the tasting room to see how well I did.
Here is a list of what the beers were. They were all white.
Yes.
Got that part right. You'll also see that your second sample was spiked with a chemical called acetaldehyde.
Acetaldehyde is a naturally occurring chemical produced by yeast, which can get trapped in the beer if fermentation is stopped too early, resulting in a beer that tastes like cut grass.
I think that's pretty amazing, the process you guys go through to make sure that when it does get to the customer that they're getting what they should be getting.
Yeah, thank you. It's hard work. But
well, thank you for letting me join your
gotta do it.
panel and contribute.
Of course.
Now that I've failed the sensory panel, I head over to meet the man himself, Allagash's founder, Rob Todd.
You must be Rob.
I am Rob.
Matt Delamater. So nice to meet you,
Good to
man.
meet you too.
Thank you so much for having us out to your amazing spot. This is incredible.
Thanks for coming.
Right now, I understand we are sitting where it all began.
Yep, it all started right here. This is where the original 15-barrel brew house was that I kind of cobbled together between October of '94 and when we started selling beer in the summer of '95.
When Rob first started Allagash, he couldn't just go out and buy industrial brewing equipment on a small scale. So like many Mainers, he got creative. He purchased several old dairy tanks, which were used to process milk, and retrofitted them so he could brew beer. He used that same system to brew all of Allagash's beers until the spring of 2013, when their new brew house came online. Today, the original mash mixer, lauter tun, and grist case are still being used to brew their specialty beers, and occasionally year-round beers like White.
Looks like this was the original setup.
That's right, so you can see up there in this picture, this is the original brew house, which was very stripped down, totally manual, not at all automated.
Yeah, the system we looked at today with Evan was quite different.
Yeah, so this is kind of an opportunity to see how things were really for years before the brand got some momentum.
Now, why Belgian beer?
I thought it was important to be brewing something that people had never tried before. I figured, what's the point of spending a year here putting together this system and then brewing beer for my whole life if we're doing something that people already can get?
In 1995, Belgian-style beers were not widely available in the US. Rob had tasted several while working for another brewery and knew that the American public was missing out. He wanted to give people a unique beer drinking experience, but things didn't go so well in the beginning.
I remember the first time someone gave me or brought me an Allagash White, and I remember trying it, I remember loving it, but I remember looking at the beer in the glass and being like, what's wrong with this beer?
Yeah, absolutely. I used to bring samples into bars, and they kind of look at it, and the first thing they say is, what's wrong with it? Why does it look different?
I'm not
They
the only
taste
one.
it.
That's
Why
good.
does it taste different? Why does it smell different? So it absolutely came with our share of challenges, and really the first 12 years, we didn't grow a whole lot. We grew from about 120 barrels to about 6,000 barrels when we moved
in
out
12
of here.
years. Wow.
In 12 years.
Wow.
And over the last 7 or 8 years, that growth has accelerated quite a bit.
Today, Allagash is known across the country as one of the best producers of high-quality Belgian-style beers. They are ranked the 42nd largest craft brewery in America, producing over 2 million gallons of beer annually. While they're a staple here in Maine, their largest markets are actually Southern California, Chicago, and Boston, which is very unique among Maine breweries.
Going back 10 or so years, we couldn't give the beer away. And the way we kept this place afloat was just to open as many markets as we could, just to do enough volume to survive. and we actually ended up in about 30 states. And when things really started to take off, we actually had to pull out of a lot of those territories. But we stayed in the territories where we really felt like the brand had traction, and that was markets like LA and San Francisco and Chicago, New York, DC, Philly. Maine continues to be obviously an extremely important market for us, and Maine continues to grow. So although some of these markets out of state are a little bit bigger than the Portland market, we keep growing here, and it's at the end of the day the most important territory.
Even though Allagash has seen tremendous growth over the last several years, they remain one of the most well-respected breweries around, primarily because of the culture Rob has created. He encourages employees to push the limits of beer, constantly learn new things, and experiment with new techniques or styles, even if it comes at a financial loss to the company. It's this spirit of innovation that has allowed Allagash to take risks on things like building a Coolship, which has earned the respect of beer drinkers and other breweries around the country.
20 years ago, 1995, you sold your first keg of beer to the Great Lost Bear.
I remember like it was yesterday sitting there, and I kind of thought when I finished my first pint, I'd be satisfied and there really wouldn't be any more work to do. And I had that pint, then had one more pint, and then I kind of thought, okay, I got to get back to work.
That's awesome. I think that culture works well with what you guys do. And
yeah, and we're lucky to be in this business. You know, most of these restaurant and bar owners, they're just great people, and they become personal friends of mine. Dave and Mike and Bird and Chip down at the Bear, they've been really close personal friends for 20 years, and we really appreciate the support from the local community.
so what can we expect from Allagash in the next 20 years here? Any cool things coming down the road?
Hopefully we'll be able to give back more to the local community, and the quality will keep getting better, and I couldn't be more positive and energized about the next few years.
I love it. Well, we can't thank you enough for having us out here today, Rob. It's really been a pleasure.
Thanks
I really
for taking the
appreciate it.
time.
Thank you so much.
Coming up, I visit one of Portland's original and most unique craft beer bars, the Great Lost Bear.
We will represent as many Maine beers as we possibly can.
But first, it's time for another round. In 1979, Dave and Wesley Evans established the Great Lost Bear after working in another startup restaurant in exchange for free food and a place to stay. They originally opened as the Grizzly Bear, but had to change the name after another restaurant with the same name sued them over copyright issues. To keep with the bear theme, they renamed their restaurant the Great Lost Bear. Since the beginning, the Bear has been a little out there, from their location 2 miles from Portland's downtown district to their ever-evolving menu, which features a little something for everyone, from spicy chicken wings to all-American burgers, sandwiches, and hearty nachos, all served in an entertaining atmosphere. Early on, they decided to focus on New England and Maine-made beers, including beers from Brewery Brewing and Allagash Brewing. The Great Lost Bear has been recognized many times as one of the top beer bars in the country by Draft Magazine, Gourmet Magazine, All About Beer Magazine, foodandwine.com, and many others. Over the years, they have grown from a handful of employees to over 40 full and part-time employees, 10 of which are sons and daughters of former employees, also known as legacies. Today I'm talking with one of the Bear's most dedicated employees, bar manager Mike Dickson, about what makes the Bear so special, their passion for Maine craft beer, and their relationship with Allagash Brewing.
Cheers.
My man, must be Mike.
Nice to meet you.
Pleasure. Nice to meet you. I'm Matt. Thanks so much for having me out to the Bear,
Thank you for coming by.
So Mike, how long have you been at the Bear?
I've been here, 25 plus years, since
25.
1985, maybe
Get out of
1986. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So I was certainly here when all this started.
You probably had a few less taps on the
We
wall.
did. We only had just a handful that were just sat over at the top of the Bear's head. I think maybe 6 of them. And then we went to, I believe, 24. And then we went to somewhere in the 40s, 50s, and now we're at 78, including beer engines. So we have 4 cask-conditioned beers as well, or pumps as they call them.
Did you ever think that, Maine beer, Maine craft beer would grow to the popularity and the level?
No, I don't. No, to be honest with you, I never thought it would get to this point. I mean, I was around in the first few years when Gritty's and Geary's and Shipyard were just getting going. And now we're having this new resurgence, and it's just incredible. It's so hard to keep up with, not just in the state of Maine, but all over the country.
I know. I mean, I look around here and you have so many Maine beers
We
on
do,
tap.
and that is our priority. We will represent as many Maine beers as we possibly can.
In 1986, the Bear expanded their tap lines to include 16 different beers, which at the time was unheard of. Over the years, they've expanded, and today they offer 78 beers on tap, including over 50 beers from New England, 40 of which are from Maine.
What brings people to the Bear?
We have so many people that just come and go, this is the only place for nachos, this is the best place for a burger, this is the best place for the wings, and of course the microbrews. And it's a great bang for your buck. Eclectic pub fare, if you may.
Absolutely.
So most of our beers that we normally pour in pints are served in the tall glass on Mondays and Tuesday nights. And we also have a daily pint special, $2.99 every single day of the week.
Yeah, every Thursday we're doing something. $2.99 pints. You can't always get a $2.99 pint of a abyssal substance. You know, so you're going to come to the Bear. You're going to do that.
It's great to be able to come to some place at any time and get a $3 friggin' beer.
Oh, exactly. Some are a little more popular than others as far as the $2.99 pint special goes, but it doesn't really matter. People are looking for a discount. They want a quality beer, they're going to get it. And then, of course, we do Thursday night showcases.
Every Thursday, they hold a craft beer showcase where they feature a local Maine beer at a discounted price. Sometimes you even get to meet the brewers and score some great Lost Bear swag.
We have a lot of fun with it. It's been a huge success, and we've done that for probably 20-something years, too.
This is the place to be, man. You guys have 78 beers on tap.
It's totally the place to be. That's why I'm still here. It's probably why I'm going to be here 10 years from now. So.
I know, exactly. Other than great food and great prices, people come to the Bear because they have something that no other bar in town has, Allagash Alley. Consisting of 5 dedicated tap lines exclusively for Allagash beer, Allagash Alley features unusual and hard-to-find beers such as Confluence, Fluxus, and Curio. Getting these rare beers on tap is only one of the reasons the Bear is so popular.
So they can't get to the brewery to get it. They say
They know that a bottle of Curio they just purchased in the store is now available at the Great Lost Bear on draft. That's the reputation that Allagash Alley has developed with us.
it seems like your history with Allagash is pretty storied. I mean, we just talked with Rob, and his first keg of beer that he ever sold was right here.
Absolutely, and it seems like just yesterday, but it's nice to be part of that history, and we've never really looked back, or I don't think he has either. It's our #1 account, draft account, probably 10 months out of the year.
Since I happen to be sitting next to Allagash Alley, Mike pours a tasting paddle for me. Not sure what you want to drink? Want a little taste of everything? You can try between 2 and 5 beers from their extensive menu with this paddle. You can mix and match Belgians, lagers, and seasonals. Tonight, my paddle consists of only beers from Allagash.
Interlude, Triple, Black, Curio, our most popular one in the Allagash Alley.
Curio right here,
And then
yeah.
the Saison, which is probably the lightest style of the 5 that I have in front of you right now.
First up, Saison.
Saison, very
I don't know if I've
drinkable.
actually had that Saison before.
Very good.
Oh, wow. Oh, it's super light and fresh.
Very similar to an Allagash White, but the Saison,
But he kind of pulls the spices back a little bit.
it does, and
yeah.
you can tell just the unfiltered difference between that and the Saison too is big. And that is the Curio.
Curio is a bourbon barrel-aged strong ale with a whopping 11% ABV and was the first beer Allagash ever aged in barrels. After the aging process is complete, they blend the beer back with a portion of fresh triple ale. This gives the resulting beer a soft mouthfeel with notes of coconut, vanilla, and hints of bourbon.
I love this. You can really taste the bourbon,
Oh, it's
barrel.
really,
It's
really
amazing.
nice.
It's
It's
amazing.
so smooth, yeah.
I feel like as the brewers really do pump up that alcohol content, it is challenging to maintain the flavor profile. And
Completely.
these guys seem to do it better,
Oh, they-
better than most out there.
Yeah,
It's
and
amazing.
the
yeah.
barrel age concept is something else. Just you can't beat it. And
This
this
is the
is
black.
the triple. That's actually probably
Oh,
the
yeah,
nice one to
yeah,
try. after having
absolutely. Yeah, the
Curio.
triple. So this is just without. This is before it goes into the oak
Exactly.
barrels.
Yeah.
Triple is a strong golden ale with notes of passion fruit in the aroma and suggestions of banana and honey. Coming in at 9% ABV, Triple has a remarkably long and smooth finish.
Yeah. It's sweeter. It's funny how the oak barrels really add that.
Oh, isn't that nice?
A little,
Perfect.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So this is a special beer, right? The interlude.
That is the interlude. Yes.
Yeah.
Interlude is a red, bready, and slightly tart farmhouse ale. A portion of the base beer is aged in wine barrels. which impart a distinctive plum character and a almost tannic finish. It's one of Allagash's specialty beers, coming in at 9.5% ABV and has a limited annual release.
It's earthy. I like it.
Earthy.
It's really, really good.
Yep.
Last up, my favorite, Allagash Black.
See, I'm a big fan of the black.
I am too.
Allagash Black is a Belgian-style stout with a dark, roasted chocolate profile. It's available year-round and has a 7.5% ABV.
I got to tell you, I can't thank you enough for having us here. And
My pleasure.
Allagash Alley is a pretty special place to
It's
be able to
really
come.
cool. All right. Thank you
Pleasure.
very much.
Thank you so much, Mike.
Cheers.
Appreciate it. Cheers, absolutely. It's been an amazing day here at Allagash Brewing. I got to help Evan Culver brew a batch of their signature beer, Allagash White. This is the orange peel?
Yep, this is a sweet orange peel. It's
Chewy.
Yeah, it's not very good.
Not very good.
Very bitter.
Wow. It'll be good in the beer.
Very good in the beer.
Then I got to meet brewmaster Jason Perkins, who gave me a behind-the-scenes tour of Allagash. I doubt that you started on that kind of Cadillac of a system.
No, it took us almost 18 years to really get to the point where we could, have the resources to put something like this in.
And I learned how Allagash blends their wild barrel-aged beers, firsthand from Jason.
We take density readings, we take cell counts of yeast in solution, but in the end, it's all about the flavor. That's really what determines the final blend.
I put my beer tasting knowledge to the test with Carl on Allagash's sensory panel.
I could get used to this.
Then I sat down with the man who started it all, founder Rob Todd, to talk about the early days of Allagash.
One of the great things about our new brew house is that it's freed the old brew house, the original brew house, up for more innovative beers.
And I got to talk with the manager of the Great Lost Bear, Mike Dickson, about their special relationship with Allagash and Maine craft beer.
Especially with all these new microbrews that are popping up. Everybody wants that new and shiny thing, so to speak, But Allagash still is on the forefront.
They seem like they've stayed on the front lines of that.
Completely.
Yes, it was a day full of Belgian beer, the bear, and outstanding people from one of Maine's original craft breweries, Allagash Brewing Company. Local Brew is sponsored by the Maine Brew Bus, the official ride of Local Brew, driving you to drink local since 2012. Beer Cellar, selling fine craft beer, wine, ciders, and mead in Portland, Maine. Carter's Cross Country Ski Center, your Maine cross-country skiing source in Oxford and Bethel, Maine.